Hello, and welcome to the 108 podcast. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Raquel.
And we're the Type 1 Together girls.
We are stripping down life with type 1 diabetes from two people who live different versions of it every single day. Please remember, Type 1 Together does not give medical advice. We are only sharing from personal experience. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the 108 podcast. I'm so excited today to be interviewing Nick and Rebecca. They have such an incredible story. They're both type 1 parents. We're going to get into it, but they're also the founder of Palmr, which is such a cool brand that you all need to know about. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Let's just dive right into your type 1 story and why this is such a big passion of yours.
Yes, so
It starts with
me, so we'll go in it. So my son, who is now 12, was diagnosed at the age of 2. So he just celebrated in April his 10-year anniversary. Crazy to think that's the case, but diagnosed, literally had no idea what type 1 diabetes even was when it happened. Got really sick. Doctors thought he had the flu. Basically kind of the traditional misdiagnosed story that most people hear. He is throwing up, all this stuff. And honestly, just like I always say, he felt like a rag doll in my arms, like just lethargic. Is that how you say the word, right? Yeah, that's a hard word to say sometimes. So, and eventually I called the doctor. I just happened to, by the grace of God, say, I have no idea if this is connected, but he is peeing like crazy, wetting through all his diapers. I mean, I can tell you stories after story of him just like, literally, I thought every diaper brand was horrible. Is my son really that different? No, it's just because he became a type 1 diabetic. So 2 years old, diagnosed, grace of God, that the doctors figured out as soon as I said he is peeing like crazy and wetting through all his diapers. They're like, he's probably a type 1 diabetic. Get to the hospital right now. Not just any hospital, but the Arnold Palmer Hospital, which is the children's hospital here in Orlando. Absolutely fantastic. And so get down there. Find out he is a type 1 diabetic, spends 3 days in the hospital. By the grace of God, he's back, going back to life. I mean, they basically said he was on the verge of death, like one of those extreme situations, or crazy DKA, all those type of things. And so, yeah, all of a sudden, I am a T1D dad, and my life has changed forever. Fast forward, I have a daughter a few years later, and I remember even talking to the doctor about it and being like, hey, I don't want to bring another kid into the world if I know they're going to be a type 1 diabetic as well. And we were literally told at the time, you have less than a 1% chance of that happening. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. At no point were we ever saying, hey, you should get tested or anything like that. I don't even know if there was things like that back then. Mm-hmm. But sure enough, I have a beautiful little girl named Evie a few years later, 3 years later. And then at the age of 4, she got also diagnosed. And the crazy thing about it is that I went through a divorce during that time. And literally as we finalized things, separating, going to new households, all that is right when my daughter got diagnosed. And I truly do feel like the shock and all that things kind of is what kind of kickstarted it, I guess you can say. And so she was 4 years old at the time when that happened. And so now I have 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. Then, a few years later, I met Rebecca. The weird thing about the story is that I actually have known her family and mostly her sister for a very long time. She has been my industrial broker. And so the short version is she decided to play matchmaker. We met. It took a little bit to get used to it.
They were really bad at like being natural and keeping it under wraps. But
yeah. So we met and she joined the family and became a T1D stepmom, as you can say, which makes our story even more, I think, interesting at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, I have so many questions and things to dive into. First, really fast, do you have a family history of type 1 or is this totally out of nowhere?
No history, no nothing that I know of.
Well, they weren't really able to go too far back on the biomom side because her mom is adopted.
So there's not very much family history.
So there wasn't a lot of history to go off of. And we can talk about this later, but we've actually dove into our own fertility journey and starting that for each other. And he did take the gene test for it. And he was, sorry, I look like I keep breaking up. Am I breaking up?
It's okay. I think he'll come back.
Okay. So he actually did the gene test for it and it came back negative.
Okay. So interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it is just random and who knows why, but I had to ask that with the 2 kids. I was curious. Okay. And then Rebecca, when you came into everything, did you have any knowledge of type 1? already?
No. When he mentioned type 1, I thought like, oh, that's weird. Like such young kids with type 1, because I was thinking type 2 diabetes, which is what most people think of. And, we would go on our dates and like he would talk about it, but there's so much that he could explain it to me versus like living in it, being with it all the time, because type 1 diabetes just 24/7, so it just never stops. So it was definitely a shock when we decided to move in together and like combine our family, because I have no kids of my own, always lived on my own, like had my house, like had a lot of peace and quiet and time to get sleep. And then fast forward, I entered the family and it was just such a shock to me. It really felt like 2 diagnoses at once for me, because I had Nick, obviously, that had been doing it for a while, but like there was nobody that I could really talk to about it and like relate to it, because there's so much. I don't want to like bog Nick down. I didn't want to bog him down for him to be like, oh, I'm ruining her life, like with her entering this family, because I didn't want that aspect of it, but I also like felt the need of having like someone to be able to talk to about it. And I would go to my sister who has 2 kids of her own, and then I would go to like friends and that have kids, and it's like no one could really like relate to it, because when I would say, it's like you literally have to be on 24/7, and for me, night times was the scariest for me. I thought that, even Nick has been dealing with this for so long, he's going to sleep through a low. This is going to be the night that he does it. So I was just like not sleeping the first few months of me, like of us all moving in together. So I think it was 3 months of us officially living together, and I got the shingles. And I was 31 when I got diagnosed with the shingles. And basically they were like, well, 2 things. I had the chicken pox really bad when I was little, so it kind of like always lived dormant in your body, but the stress brought it all out, and like what I was doing to my body of like not sleeping. So I had the shingles. It was the worst pain I've ever experienced. Like it was awful. And I think me getting the shingles really kind of like kickstarted us to like, okay, like, this is a lot. Like, we can't pretend it's not a lot. So, like, let's start doing things to, like, make changes, like, to really combine our lives. Because I moved into his house. And I think that was one main, like, thing that just felt off for me. So we went and we bought a house on our own, like, both of our houses. And we moved in, and I think it was so much, that was so big for everyone, even the kids, because I feel like the kids were confused, like, they have so many other memories in that household, and then here I am, and we're trying to, like, start new memories, and it just wasn't working. So that was the first step that we took, was moving into our own house. And then from there, I'm like, Nick, like, do you have any support group for type 1 diabetes? Like, do you know of anybody? And he's like, I know of one other family that I was introduced to because the daughter goes to the same school the kids go to. And he ended up becoming good friends with the dad. But he's like, besides that, I don't know anybody. And I'm like, well, who can I talk to? So then I started going on like Facebook and being like, there has to be like Facebook groups on this. So I get on like Facebook groups. At the same time, I'm getting into stepmom groups. It was like the stuff that was being said in these different forums and different groups, I was like scarred for life. I was like, this is not going to work out. Like, there's just no, like, this is just not going to work. And I think we really hit a point that we were like, Nick was even like, what are you reading? What are they saying? Like, what are these things? Because you look scared every time you like get off a call or, you read something. So that's when we really realized we needed community, and we were going to make this community for ourselves. And I felt like it was God sent, but we then got introduced to Elizabeth a few weeks after this.
From Touched by Type 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
Through her husband, because Nick was in the same business group as her husband, and he just casually was like, oh yeah, my wife has type 1, like you guys should meet, blah, blah, blah. So we go to dinner with them, and I was fascinated by Elizabeth because she was pregnant at the time. I knew she had type 1, and she never once gave herself insulin or bolus or anything for the food, because she just ate protein the entire dinner and just knew how to fuel her body. And I was like going under the table, I'm like, do you see she hasn't given herself any insulin? Like, how is this dinner so calm right now? While in the meantime, our phones are going off that the kids' numbers are insane. Like, it's like, what in the world? So it's really getting connected with her that then led to opening so many other doors with Touch by Type 1 and just meeting so many other amazing people. And I truly feel when you meet other people that can relate to you on that level of type 1 diabetes, they like become part of your family, because it's like, wow, you get me on like a level that not most people get me on.
Yeah. Okay. So when you were first like meeting Nick and I guess starting to join the family, either of you can answer. Like, Nick, were you setting expectations of like, okay, you're coming into this, I'm expecting you to, manage diabetes a little bit? Because clearly if you were so stressed, Rebecca, you cared so much, which is a beautiful thing. But I want to hear how that transitioned.
Well, it's because I'm a crazy person. So.
Yeah. So it's funny because when we met, I did not even want to date.
Yeah.
Like, I was in this anti-dating, like, I just want to focus on myself and my kids at that point in my life. Not really interested in dating.
Because you thought, like, who would date me?
Yeah, well, and that's another side, too, right? I'm like, what crazy woman would want to be involved with somebody with 2 kids with type 1 diabetes? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so I was just kind of, like, not interested. And even, it was so bad that I made up a fake girlfriend. Yes. So the first day that we met,
that my sister planned this like whole, like, it was a lot of friends came with us. It was like a group event. But here is Nick talking about this girlfriend that he has. So, I mean, it's my first time meeting Nick, so I'm just listening to these stories that he has to say. And then apparently my sister went to another friend that were trying to set us up, and it's like, since when did Nick get a girlfriend? I didn't know Nick had a girlfriend. And his friend's like, I didn't know about this girlfriend either. Apparently made her up.
Because I was that was how much dating I was, right? And I wanted nothing to do with it. And and then even when we did, like, it took about 6 months really after like we met, and then they tried to do a few other times.
I feel like Nick was very good at like, I got to know Nick first, so I dated Nick. I didn't really date Nick right away as the dad of 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. I knew he was a dad, but it was very much, and we very much took our time with, like, even when I met the kids, like, it was after a while, and like, even when he had the kids, because obviously there's split custody, when he had the kids, I knew, like, okay, that's his time with the kids. Like, I'm probably not going to see him this weekend or whatever the case may be. And I was okay with that at the beginning because it was also semi-new after Evie was diagnosed, right? Yeah. It was like 6 months after she had gotten diagnosed. So I was like, there's so many changes going on. Like, let me not add me to the mix. So I definitely feel at that same time, we were both like patient with that and knew like, okay, this is a very sensitive, it's more than just having kids. Like, there's also a chronic illness with it. So let's like, and he gave me like a million outs. He was like, are you sure? Like, every time I would get home from a date, I would get a text from Nick being like, are you sure you still want to date me? Are you sure?
Yeah,
it was pretty funny. So it was definitely a lot of, I do credit Nick in the way he went about dating me because I really got to know him. And I think that's what really blew his mind because he was like, why do you want to get yourself involved? And it's like, well, I already like built this relationship with you. Like, I know you. So like, obviously, I'm going to feel love for like your kids and like, it's going to come. It's just, we just had to plan life differently. So I say we did a good job dating. We moved in. I wish we could go back. We wouldn't have moved into his house. Like, I would have moved into like a new house of our own. But yeah, it was definitely fun, like dating, like different because I would see him checking his phone a lot and I was known to be a jealous girl. And at one point, like a few dates in, he had to tell me like, oh, if you see me checking my phone a lot, I'm checking the numbers. Like, I'm not getting blown up with texts or anything. Like, because usually when we would go on a date, his parents would babysit for Nick.
Okay. So at what point did you follow, I'm assuming you follow the kids on Dexcom?
Yeah, I think that also added to my shingles story because Nick asked me, he's like, hey, like there's an app that you can see what their numbers are at all times. Like, do you want this? And I'm like, yes, I must have it. Like, again, in my mind, I'm like, he's going to sleep through a low. Like, to me at the beginning, the lows were like the scariest thing for me. And then nighttime. Yeah, you gave me access to both kids and it went horribly wrong. Like, it was so bad because, again, I took it as like, okay, well, there's all this technology and we have these apps that tell you what the kid's number is. There's no reason why the kids shouldn't be in range. Like, that's how my mind works. Like, we have all this stuff to set us up for success. Like, it should be perfect. And perfect does not exist with type 1. I quickly learned that. But I had this sense of like, I'm coming in, like, I'm going to help make these things so great. And like, I was like cooking all these meals and I'm just like, what the heck am I doing? Like, literally, like, I could spend hours on a dinner and their diabetes would go crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, but I swear this was like a healthy like recipe. So yeah, we did once we moved in together, I got access to the app and then it became even worse. Like once we got more into like getting married and everything and being a family, because I started finding myself when we didn't have the kids, I was still checking the app. So, and like he would still always get the alerts and stuff, like when, actually we both would still get the alerts, and it just became like the number one thing about our relationship. It would be like the only thing we would talk about. Like we would go out to dinner on like a date and we were talking about the numbers, and we had no control over it because they're not under our roof, like at the time. Right. And, they're with their other parents. So there's nothing that we could physically do about it. So it took a lot of therapy, and I mean, we literally got married, and I swear like a week later we were in therapy before everything, but we believe in therapy. It doesn't always have to be when things are going horribly wrong. So we advocate for therapy because I really truly feel like it saved us. But it was our therapist being like, more to me of like, why do you need access to it? And then I was like, well, of course I do, because if, I'm Nick's backup, if Nick doesn't like hear the alarm or doesn't get to it right away, like I'm his backup and I can do it. And he's like, our therapist was like, well, what about when you weren't in the picture? And when he was a single dad and he was doing it on his own, like he did it for this amount of years and there was never anything that went horribly wrong. And that's when I was like, okay, like this makes sense. And then I also like kind of like got back my like strength and like control over my own life. And I'm like, in reality, yes, I'm Nick's partner in life. And I am quote unquote his backup, but this stuff with diabetes, there's so much that I can do about it because again, I'm the stepmom. So I'm very limited in the crazy event, God forbid something crazy is happening, I'm not those kids' like biological parent. So there's so much that I can do. So I think the therapist actually like questioning, like pushing back on me on like, why do you need access to all of this, kind of made me take a step back and be like, I don't need to have the app on when we don't even have the kids. So now it's a thing that because we do 1 week on, 1 week off with the kids, when they leave that morning, I turn the notifications off.
Good for you.
Because it was really the only way, like, and I hear so much about like type 1 diabetes and like the parents and caregivers and like the diagnosis story. But I also feel like people should be talking about like the anxiety that goes on throughout the whole time. Like, it's not just really bad at the diagnosis story. Yes, it's horrible in that moment. But that like anxiety of like basically you have your kid's life, like you're like in charge of their life is in your hands 24/7. Like, people need to be talking about this because it's a whole other type of anxiety that like I've never experienced with any. There's nothing that I can relate that anxiety to that I've gone through in my life.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just so glad that I'm having you on to share like this version of what type 1 parenting can look like. My parents are also divorced. My dad actually lived in San Diego for a lot of my life while I was living in Texas. And so there were times where I was visiting him and then I was back. There was no Dexcom at the time. So it was what it was, which was probably healthy in a way for my mom, but at the same time, probably very nerve wracking. Give me more of an idea of like what this looks like now. So you don't have the notifications on. Are you still checking the app? And like what other things have you put in place to kind of alleviate your anxiety that you were having before, if any?
So it actually was both of us. So I was the first one to take the notifications off, but he also did too when we don't have the kids, but he still has like the widget. It's still on his like home screen and the widget screen or whatever it's called. So he still can see it if he goes to his phone. But I've also I did that. And I also took away like who had access to me, meaning like, between them and like the co-parenting and stuff, it was like, it felt like a lot of it was starting to like bleed through like into me. And I'm like, well, I'm not a buffer here. Like, it's the kids that need to be taken care of. And there's no time to argue about anything because at the end of the day, it's diabetes. You know what I mean? So I really took a step back of like, who needs to have access to me? How do I want to be involved with the diabetes? Because Nick always was like, he didn't necessarily, it didn't matter to him if I had it or if I didn't have access to it, you know, like he has it handled. So like at night, if there's a low or anything, like Nick is the one that still gets up and does everything. That's another thing that reminds me that we did when we first moved in together. This was horrible. But we had a loaner phone, we had Nick's phone, and we had my phone at volume 100. Yeah. So anytime the alarms would go off, it'd be all three of these phones going off at the same time. Like, it literally sounded like a bomb squad in our room. Like, it was insane. And then sometimes if you're lucky enough, because we have 2 kids with it, it's times 2 the alarms are going off. So that was another thing that we nipped in the butt pretty early on too. So I just have it when we do have the kids at our house, my notification's just on vibrate. He will have his on ringer, obviously, but we got rid of that loader phone because I'm like, that thing has to go. And I know that there's that sugar pixel now, and we're like, we want to get one, but then we're also like, oh my God, what happens if this, like, we have PTSD with like having this other device with the numbers, but I think we'll eventually get it. But
because really at the end of the day, and I don't know, maybe this is a very unpopular opinion, but like her job is to be my wife, not to be their stepmom. Like, yes, with her marrying me, she has signed on to be their stepmom, but I fully believe her number one job is to be my wife at the end of the day and be my partner. And it's going to look different for everybody. Her job is to take care of me first, and then in change, part of that is she's going to be helping with the kids. She's the backup at times, right? She's doing things, but it's still my kids. It's my responsibility, first off, to take care of the manage their diabetes. It is not her responsibility, but she does choose to be there and help me. But her number one job is actually to support me more than anything. And I know that, and we joke around all the time because life is crazy. There's good days, there's bad days, there's highs and lows. But when I have a bad day, she is there to be my encouragement and to pick me up. When she's having a bad day, it's my job to be her encouragement and pick her up and get her back on track. And that is the most important thing at the end of the day. Because we cannot be good T1D parents to our kids if we are not taking care of ourselves first. And that is something that we have really gone on with our journey, is this whole thing of like, what should self-care look like and how can we be the best versions of ourselves for our kids to take care of their type 1 diabetes? But it starts with taking care of ourselves first and our marriage first. Because if our marriage is not good, then we're fighting and then everything else falls apart.
And then like, even to add on to it, like from the beginning, he's given me like, hey, do you want to learn how to change the equipment? Do you want to know? Which we have. I actually recorded it, so I would always like know how, because if you haven't realized yet, I'm like psycho. But so I would like have it recorded. Like till this day, I was just thinking, I've never, not by myself, I've never changed any equipment without Nick being there in the room too. But again, like there's some nights that I'm like, go have a game night, like go hang out with your friends. And then I send him off. And then of course, 2 seconds later, there's no data, something is failing. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, why is this happening? But I also think that was important in our story that he asked me the question of like, how do you want to be involved? And I think that my first instinct was like, oh my God, I'm going to help. I'm going to cure their diabetes by being perfect and like all this stuff. And then it really took like the help of someone else, like a third party coming in and being like, what do you want? Like, what access do you want? Like, what do you want your role to be? And I think it even grew like my relationship with the kids, because I was so honed in on the diabetes, I almost didn't see anything outside of that. Like, I always saw it as like a stressor and like, oh my God, it's so hard. Like, everything is so hard. Where when I kind of took that step back, I was able to like have more of an ability of having a relationship with them, getting to know them. And like, you know, like I think what Nick was trying to say is like, they both have their dad and they both have their mom. And at the end of the day, like at the very beginning, you know, they were like, what should we call you? And I was always like, you should call me, like, come up with a nickname for me. I have 2 nephews I'm super close to, and they call me Tata. And I'm like, you guys come up with a nickname. So they came up with Beck, and I'm their Beck. And I feel like our relationship is very like friendship. Like we have like a close friendship, which I'm very happy to say that we have that. It wasn't always perfect, but it really took like me being able to take a step back and be like, what's important here? It's like building this relationship, building this family. And yes, they have type 1 and it doesn't go away, but thankfully in my case, I have a pro at it. So let him be the pro. And when I want to step in or step up, I will.
Yeah, I love that. I love the dynamic of your relationship, and also that, like, Nick, it feels to me like you still have full accountability for the diabetes if you need to do it, even though Rebecca, you're clearly so willing to help.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many moms message us just saying that their partners, specifically their husbands, are not helping that much. And I don't want to put them all in that category because there are some amazing type 1 dads out there. But, it could have also been easy, Nick, for you to come in and be like, okay, well, I have Rebecca now, so like she can do diabetes.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's people that like even put the type 1 diabetes side aside, right? Like there's people that are just ignorant where they're like, oh, you have a new wife now, right? She's not taking on the role of the mom. Like she should do all the mom duties and this and that. And I'm like, this is not her kids, right? Like that's not her responsibility. Come in and like take over and do everything for me, right? Like she's there to help me because she chooses to. But like I would be the world's worst husband if I'm like, all right, here's my kids, dump them off.
But he's, I mean, kind of to your point, Raquel, he's very like hands-on dad, which my parents are still married and they've been married for like 46 years now and very close family. And my dad was very hands-on too and always involved in everything. But it was always my mom pretty much doing everything. Like typical Cuban family. Like she's cooking, she's doing this. Like, she's the one that does everything. And then when I like met Nick, I was even like my parents made a comment like, he's so hands-on with the kids. Like what you would think the female role is, quote unquote, it's Nick. And
I love that.
That was actually like surprising for me. And like even when I started asking like, do you have like a support system or something for type 1, it was like I could tell that it was weighing heavy on him because here he is like taking it all on and he doesn't really have this support group. And like I don't think he really realized all that he was doing until he took a step back and like met other families and stuff. And we recently had somebody tell us they have type 1 and they're like, we actually think it's harder to be a caregiver of type 1 than actually having type 1 because, it's our body, like it's up to us to take care of ourselves. But when you're the caregiver, it's like there's a certain period of time that like you're responsible for their life, quote unquote. So yeah, I definitely like, he's a saint. He does so much. So yes, it was also a good situation that he gave, like I mentioned before, he gave me that choice. And that's when I felt like, okay, like I do want to do this. I don't want to do this. Like he, like very early on, we realized like this girl needs her sleep. If not, she'll get shingles. So that's why we like made it a call of like nighttime stuff. Like it's all on him. Like I just can't be on call for that. And we've met so many people and we've talked to so many people. And a lot of T1D moms have said, they compare it to like never getting out of the baby stage of like being a parent to a T1D kid. And it makes a lot of sense. But in reality, I've never been through the baby stage. So like I never knew what that was all about and all that stuff. So I really had to be gentle with myself because yes, I was becoming a stepmom and, yes, I'm an adult, but it's like no one could have prepared me for that because I mean, obviously I just hadn't gone through it before.
Yeah. I love all of it. And Nick, I'm curious from you, like the back and forth that's happening, I guess both of you, but how do you manage settings and do you have anything you can speak to just managing diabetes, I guess, between your ex-wife and how does that all look if you're comfortable sharing?
Okay.
It's hard.
That is a hard question to answer. We do not have the best co-parenting relationship. I'll be the first to say that. It is truly hard. And I don't, for all of the other divorced parents out there who can sit there and co-parent for your kid and put things aside, like amazing. I'm so happy for that. That has not been my story for things. I'm not going to necessarily go into why that is the case. I want to be very careful with what I say, but like it has been a very hard challenge. And I know for myself that I guess there's really two parts. One, I know I have to be there for my kids and be the super dad at the end of the day, right? I'm the one that takes them to all their diabetes appointments. I'm the one that does everything. I manage the equipment. I make sure we have the supplies in, the prescriptions, make sure we have insulin. I do everything. And I know that I have to take that role to do it. And the hardest part, and this goes back to what Rebecca was saying before, is that when I do not have my kids with me, I cannot be there for them. Yeah. And that is a very hard thing to be.
Well, didn't expect tears, but here we are.
No, we welcome the tears. Thank you for being so open.
But it's like I can't be there for them always. And I have to sit back and trust that my ex-wife is going to do what she is supposed to do and take care of the kids. And I don't agree with how she manages things most of the time, but there's nothing I can really truly do about it. And that was honestly one of the hardest things. And again, help from therapy, and why I got to the point where I had to turn off my alarms as well, because if not, I am going to drive myself crazy knowing that I can't just drop what I'm doing, go over there and save my kids. Like legally, I cannot do that. So it's very difficult.
Yeah. And I think that if anyone listening to this were a true testament, like, yes, it's easy to say like, oh, well, they don't have their kids half the time, right? Like they get a vacation from it. And it's like, we are a testimony of like, I know like as his wife seeing him, it's like a piece of him just goes away from him for a week. And it's like this sense of control and like you're just giving it up and there's really nothing you can do. And in this case, it's like there's such an important like illness involved in it that it's even harder to like have to give it up. But like we really had to like, I mean, it bled into our marriage and we had to like really get strong in our faith and like advocate for like each other. Like, hey, we're not doing well. Like we need to make a therapy appointment. And we have become very vocal with each other of like, when we're having a good day and when we're not having a good day, because Mondays were super rough for me because Mondays were always transition days. And it was hard for me when the kids were going back. And then it was hard for me when the kids were coming to us because I really, truly feel like there's a good 24-hour transition period for the kids. And I think that that's really for any blended family, but it's even more so with us because we have that other layer of like, okay, when was the equipment changed? Like, when was this changed? Like, was it changed in the amount of time that like, because they have a parenting calendar of like when things should be changed, equipment should be changed, but it doesn't always go as planned. And then if the calendar is not updated, you really are just going into it blindly. When on Monday nights, when both kids are doing shower time, like he literally spends his time going through the equipment to see like, okay, what is it that I have to do? Is the calendar correct? Is it not? Like, and that's like a whole thing that like, you can't explain it to someone who doesn't go through type 1, but it's like, you know, it's a whole component of like, you're getting your kids back. So of course there's a transition period because now they're at the other parent's house, but then there's also that layer of like, you know, we need to keep their health in line. And, you know, he's going into blindly every other Monday.
Wow. Well, obviously I can't relate in that way. I mean, it does make me think a lot about what my family went through, but yeah, I just appreciate you being so open. I know there's parents listening that need to hear this. I'd love to now move the conversation towards this community and amazing brand you've created. Can you kind of, I guess, start at the beginning and tell us all about it?
So for us, what we I guess really realized, we touched on a little bit, is that like, one, because of her encouragement, and she was 100% correct, and like we need to be part of a community in this type 1 world, right? And getting connected with Touched by Type 1 was the best thing that's ever happened to us, hands down. Even like before that, like we should start realizing that we have to make kind of self-care and these things like a bigger part of our life. And so the, I guess, short version is that I own a merchandising company. I've been in this merchandise world for over 20 years at this point. I have helped all these clothing brands make amazing product, all this stuff. Like this has been my life. And when we went on our first official date, the real first date, not with my fake girlfriend, first date, but we were talking about it, and she always had this passion for fashion, and we were like, oh, we should start a clothing brand.
Or like, it would be so cool to own a clothing brand. And I wasn't that crazy already on the first day saying, let's do it together.
So, but we started talking about that from day one, and then it was, I guess, 2 years ago, about in August would be 2 years ago, we went to the Bahamas because living in Florida, we love tropical stuff. We love going to the beach. And so we went to the Bahamas for her birthday. We're literally hanging out in the pool, and we were like, we keep talking about wanting to start this clothing brand. Let's just make it happen. We are not leaving the Bahamas until we have a name and a concept of what we're going to do. And so we're hanging out in the pool under a palm tree. And she goes, we should do something with a palm tree and just do something tropical because that's what makes us happy. Mm-hmm. Right. And we have kids with type 1 diabetes. We got to take care of ourselves. And so this whole kind of concept came up of like, let's just do something fun and encourage people to like, go be tropical and go on vacation and everything. And she literally threw out the word Palmr, said, well, what about Palmr? And I'm like, love it. Let's make it happen. And so that's how we really came up with the name. Well, we get back, we're starting to work on things. We're working on logos. We have the theme and everything in place. And we love going on walks. That has been one of our best things. And I will tell any couple out there, go on walks together, just you two, no kids when you can, if you can get away. But like, that is like our time where it's like we kind of escape the world and we can talk about life and whatever, right? And we always have our best conversations and brainstorming on walks, right? Being out in nature. Well, we're on the walk and I'm like, I am somebody who really believes about giving back in that you should always give more than you receive. And it's always been a part of my life. It's part of my faith. It's everything that I do. And so I told her, if we're going to do this clothing brand, which we are because we're already starting the concepts, everything, I really want to make it more than just about us making clothes. Like, I want to give back and everything. And so I was like, let's start brainstorming like what that could be. And she literally looks over at me and she's like, why do we need to discuss what it's going to be? Like, it's going to be type 1 diabetes, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, like, what was I thinking? Yeah. Like, duh, all right? And so then we're like, okay. And then we're like, oh, wait, but we've been getting really connected with Touched by Type 1. So then we sat down with Elizabeth and said, hey, this is what we're doing. We want to give back to you guys. We know that, one, you guys, we love their organization. We will, again, there's a lot of amazing organizations out there. Our heart is for Touched by Type 1 because, one, we got to see them in action, know who they are on a personal level. And we just really love how they do it because they really focus on the community aspect. Like, that is their thing, right? And yes, they're raising money for a cure and doing all these things, but they're all about bringing people together in part of the Type 1 world. And how they do it, I think, is beautiful. And so we were like, hey, we want to give back, and we want to give back to you guys because, one, you guys are well connected, and you're going to know better than us where to best put this money, right? And so we're just going to start giving a percentage of sales to you. And we said, literally, we're like, well, we don't want to do the whole profit thing because we're probably not going to be profitable for a while. And I want to give from day one. So let's make a percentage and say, we're going to give this percentage right off the top before anything, no matter what. And so we start out at 1%. The goal is to raise that over time. Plus we do all these other things and special shirts that go 100% of the profits and all that. But we're like, you know what? 1% of everything we sell off the top literally goes back to type 1 diabetes, no matter anything else. And that was going to be our mission at the end of the day. And then as we got into it, we got more involved and we started talking to people. We honestly just kind of realized that, we don't want to just be this cool resort wear brand that gives back to type 1 diabetes. We kind of want to make that more of our whole ethos and be more involved and do more stuff. And I kind of joke, I was like, I want people to see our logo in the future, and especially if they're a type 1 diabetic, and be like, that is my brand. That is the brand who gets me and is trying to do everything they can for my life, right? It's like the people who love basketball and they see Nike and oh, that's my brand, right? We want to be that for the type 1 world. And so then we really started going down this mission of getting more involved, making more content around it, making awareness, partnering with other, creators that are doing, things in the type 1 world. And more importantly, because I live this every day with my kids, well, they're both on tandem pumps. They're tubed. And the challenge, especially for a young girl, I think boys have it way easier, but for a female, trying to wear dresses and rompers and all these cute stuff, it's impossible, right? And so I was like, let's start figuring out how we can solve this problem. And so that kind of became our mission of, well, yes, we want to make clothing that supports everyone, that goes back to the type 1 community, but let's start also working on trying to solve this problem. And so we've really been spending the last year. I mean, we really launched August of last year. We did a soft launch a little bit before that. So we're about a year old. But we really wanted to start figuring out, well, how can we best do this? And so we started doing a lot of R&D, interviewing people, asking people, taking pre-made clothes and sitting down with the seamstress and being like, all right, how can we modify this to make sense to hold an insulin pump? And we just started experimenting. We always said we want to do things right. And so we've been a little bit slower than we like, but we feel like we're really starting to figure things out and testing things. And we've been testing with things with people behind the scenes. But we really wanted to be able to make a product that really helps and supports the T1D community. And more importantly, these warriors that have issues, because listen, we want them to look great, dress amazingly, but make their life easier with their equipment at the end of the day.
Yeah. So then our main goal moving forward with, our next launches coming in is that every piece of garment that we produce is going to already include the diabetic pockets with the slits and all of that in different locations. So that's really why we did that launch with already pre-made items and kind of testing the pockets and where they would go. And we got so many good feedback. And yeah, that's why we've kind of been slower to it, because I know a lot of the feedback on social media is they don't even have a type 1 product. Well, we do. We still have our belt bag out there. That was our first main manufactured product that we did that has the slits in the back for the tubing on it. So it looks like your typical Lululemon belt bag, but it's made for diabetics. So we have that, but we really want it to just, because our kids, we kind of touched on it. We live in Florida, so all our kids want to do is swim. They're Evie's a little mermaid. She could be in the pool all day long if it was up to her, which is funny because they love it, and they love it because they actually feel free from their diabetes when they're in the water. They've told us that. But if you look at it, it's actually harder for the parents because it's every 30 minutes you got to get them out and see okay, where are you at? Are you high? Are you low? And it's a challenge, but it's we wanted to bottle up that feeling that our kids have when they're in that water and bottle it up, and even bottle it up for the caregiver, because we don't have type 1 ourselves, but we want to wear garments that make us feel good. Even if we can't take a vacation, put on a Palmr polo, it's bright, it's it brings you to your happy place of I don't know, being on the beach somewhere, but also creating garments that, the diabetic can wear and have, and, it works for them, but they don't look any different than anybody else. And, for the people that are non-diabetic, it's who doesn't like garments with pockets? It's going to be known, if you don't have type 1, you're going to be man, this company really likes pockets, because there's a lot of pockets on these things. So we really wanted to bottle up that feeling of vacation and when our kids feel the most free from their diabetes, and kind of bring it out there to everyone. I love what we have done so far with the brand, because we have found that there are so many people that are supporting us, and they may know of a friend, their friend's son has type 1, or somebody they know that has type 1, or they've heard about it, or they see our social media content and they're wow, this is amazing, we want to support the cause, and they buy it for them. So in our neighborhood, for example, we see all these kids and they're all wearing Palmr polos and Palmr hybrid swim shorts, and they look exactly the same as Parker and Evie because they're also wearing Palmr stuff. So it's we don't, and I feel with starting Palmr, we've really opened up that conversation where, the kids, more people know about type 1. And when they know the brand, they know, oh, Parker and Evie have it. So it's kind of we're having that conversation already, but I also think we're kind of soothing it over for people, because there has been little kids in our neighborhood that are oh, so what can you not have if you have type 1 diabetes? Or they hear Nick telling Parker, oh, give yourself insulin. They're oh, what is that? What is insulin? What are you doing to yourself? And it's even though they're little brains, they might not get it because they don't live with it every day, but at least they're asking the questions and they're trying to relate to Parker and Evie. And then it's almost oh, we want to be their helper. We want to make sure that their sugar is always good. And it's building that community for our kids, which we didn't have it early on. And we're at least grateful that we've started with that.
Yeah. And so we just really want Palmr to advocate for this community at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Make awareness, make people know that, hey, they're loved if they have type 1. Let's give back. Let's try to find that cure at some point, and just be hopefully a shining light in the community by supporting and saying, hey, just because you have type 1 doesn't mean that you are different. We want to make some amazing clothes for you, hopefully make your life a little bit easier. But more importantly, if you're a caregiver, we get you. We're there for you, and we're going to advocate and support you. I mean, the conversations that we are having in our DMs on Instagram with parents and this and that, where they're just like, finally, I feel like somebody gets us.
We've gotten so many DMs from like, especially women of like, OMG, I've been cutting like slits in my dresses or whatever for years. Like, I can't believe like this dress has like the pockets already in it. And that's so like meaningful to us because it's like, okay, we are making a difference. Because like we see it with Parker and Evie, but they're our kids, you know? So they kind of are like, have to love our brand. But like having other people out there be like, oh my God, this is so amazing that you're actually like taking the time to like do this. But I also feel like we're doing it in a way that anyone can wear it. Like you don't have to have type 1 diabetes to wear it. You know, you might have an extra pocket, which you could use for your phone or whatever the case may be. But it's like there's a bigger mission and like I really feel like it's the conversation that really means so much to us about Palmr.
And that's such a unique thing that y'all are doing. I haven't heard of anyone else doing that in this space. And also for those listening who may have kids on Omnipod, like these outfits are still so helpful because I've always felt so attached to my purse or my bag, like all the time, even as a kid. And so even if you don't need that pocket for your pump, you could put your meter in there, you could put your low snacks or whatever it is. And that's just as useful. I am so thankful you all sent me a couple outfits and also Kevin a polo, which he's obsessed with. He's been golfing in it. I can't wait to wear the dress this summer. It's been so gloomy and cloudy and cold here still, but I know within the next few weeks it's going to get warm and I will be wearing it all the time with the pockets, which is just so helpful for my Mobi pump. Yeah, it's really so special, like the conversations you're trying to create around type 1 and that you're not just making a product for type 1s, but for your whole community. It really does help us feel less left out and just like people understand us. Yeah. Can you, I guess, tell everyone where they can find all the things? I believe we also have a discount code I'll put in the show notes. I think it's together, if not type 1 together. I need to
We'll put it on the code. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but yes, there's definitely a discount code. So the website is palmrstyle.com. Palmr without an E, so PALMR style.com. And we're working on a lot of new stuff. We are so excited. Like I am literally bursting at the seams of all of our new stuff that's in production.
He like basically tells everybody, I'm like, is there going to be any sort of like secret when these things come out?
We got to see a photo today of one of the new dresses that are coming out for the women. Amazing. And I'm so excited. So the pre-production samples shipping right now to us so we can test it and make sure, all right, everything works right with the pockets, and then it goes into full production. But we really are like, we're going full board now. Like we feel like we have enough information, but all right, let's start mass producing stuff and make things fully custom and unique more than anything. So I'm super excited.
And we're on Instagram and TikTok. So we have a YouTube channel called The Urgent Lows with Palmr. And then we are on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, Palmr Style.
And then you're going to be at Friends for Life, right?
We are. Our first time. We're so excited.
Yes, I can't wait to meet you. Yeah, those of you listening, Friends for Life is the big conference in Orlando that's coming up. So definitely come say hi to all of us if you're coming. But yeah, we'll link all that in the show notes. And I just cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing so openly and for creating such an amazing brand. Whenever you launch all this stuff, of course, we're going to share it and all the things. So make sure you let me know. And yeah, we'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.